So we are going in a descending order. We started from Nishid Bhai, the senior most, and we are going to Aditya, the youngest. Let me now share about Aditya, the rising sun. And put your hands together for the youngest ever nominee of Padma Shri. Aditya is 26 and he has been recognized as a successful young entrepreneur and achiever on various national and international platforms. He has been invited to speak at close to 300 global institutes. He has won many awards. Some of them are absolutely outstanding: the Duke of Edinburgh International Award, the Parliamentary Award, Rex Karamveer, and the Indian Achiever Award. Aditya has 115,000 plus followers on LinkedIn. And I think, Aditya, 15,000 came in the last 1 month, if I'm not wrong. Just built by his unique knack of delving into an entrepreneur's life and journey and crystallizing it in 10 or 12 plain vanilla points. No presentation, no flash, just with extraordinary clarity and simplicity. Aditya is the CEO of Faad Capital. Faad, वो हिंदी में जो फाड़ देना बोलते हैं, Faad Capital. You heard it right. वो पंजाबी वाला फाड़ जो होता है, and it means something awesome. You know, फाड़ के रख दूंगा, करके दिखाऊंगा. बड़ा धाफू वाली चीज जो होती है ना, ये फाड़ू बंदा है. तो आदित्य हमारे में फाड़ू बंदा है. He is also known as the Faad guy. Faad is a SEBI registered category 1 fund which is invested in about 100 socially and economically desirable startups. Socially and economically desirable. His stories on the LinkedIn are bright pearls of inspiration and volition. For example, how Bikaji, the Bhujia, carved out of Haldiram's and became a 13,000 crore business, garnering 60% share in Bhujia market. Or how Kalyan Sundaram turned a 50 lakh rupees loan into a 14,000 crore business and made Kalyan Jewelers. Or how Sridhar Vembu created a 9,000 crore Zoho from zero funding. So for all these nice little inputs and inspirations, you must follow not only Aditya, but all our speakers on LinkedIn. Ladies and gentlemen, inspiration is rarely the bottleneck. There is so much of it around us. The real bottleneck is execution. And our speakers today defy that, deny that, decline that. Not for them as much as for larger good. They are here simply because of their purity of purpose. They are here just on one call, a simple request, and just on purity of their purpose. They are amongst us the Karma Yogis. I would suggest that please do connect with our speakers during formal, informal sessions, and please do follow their work. By the way, it's a pleasure to share that Aditya has agreed to be the mentor for a proposed upcoming undergraduate entrepreneurship program and some other initiatives at NSBT too. So a big thank you for that, Aditya. Let's watch a quick minute video about Aditya before we have him live.
My name is Aditya Arora and I'm the CEO of Faad Network, a leading investment firm that invests in startups. And that is why I'm called the Faad guy on social media. My passion for speaking and teaching has taken me to over 275 plus institutes around the world. But I must say my journey hasn't been easy at all. Starting with the startup at the age of 15, being the first generation entrepreneur from my family, and of course not coming from investing background and investing in startups. All of this has made my journey very challenging but very enriching as well. But I must say that the journey has really been fun. I'm more than happy to share that in this journey I've been awarded with some of the prestigious recognitions and awards. One of my beloved ones being one of the youngest nominees for Padma Shri Award 2020.
And now, let me invite Aditya for lightening up the space with his energy, enthusiasm, and experience, and share the chemistry we need to build between enterprises and education. Aditya, not only the floor, but the ceiling is also yours now. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Harsh, for that generous, very generous and very warm introduction. Even I forgot that I had made this video on YouTube so many years back. Um, and I always, of course, prefer a collar mic because वहाँ से बोलते तो ऐसे लगते हैं principal sir बोल रहे हैं. so, so always have this habit of course, moving around, seeing people. And it's, I think, going to be a very fun, interactive session, as I think Harsh already told. I'm a man of stories. So I love talking about things, breaking down things in simpler format through stories and sharing my observations and insights and experiences. Uh, and thank you so much, Samvedi. I think she's been following up with me for a very, very long time. I think it was around November, December when she called and she was like, you have to do this. Yeah, she's there at the back. So you have to do this. And I heard so much passion in her voice that, of course, that brought me to this very beautiful city of Aurangabad for the very first time to explore startups and explore entrepreneurship. Bear a bit with me, a bit down with sore throat, coming from, of course, Delhi, where the cold is now slowly fading away, but of course, really, really bad in terms of the weather. Yeah. So, a lot of things to talk about. I think I have the time as well. But there are so many things around inclusive entrepreneurship, inclusive education, right? That I think even if you talk the whole day, it's kind of impossible because so much of action is happening now when we speak about entrepreneurship, right? We have two contestants from the very famous show of Shark Tank here, which lives on Sony every now at 10 p.m. Initially at 9. So you see that entrepreneurship has become so mainstream, right? Where apart from watching a daily soap, you are watching entrepreneurship, right? When we talk about discussions at home, the discussions at home are not just about grocery list now, it's also about how much equity can you give. even my dad, in fact, we were watching Shark Tank a couple of days back with my dad, and he was actually on the TV like, यार ये गलत बोल रहा है, इसको 15% equity नहीं देनी चाहिए, इसको 12% equity देनी चाहिए. And that was, I think, very, very inspiring, as in for my dad to see कि ठीक है. Startups have also become very mainstream. Yeah. एक काम मेरे लिए भी ये easy बन गया है समझाना कि मैं exactly क्या करता हूँ. So initially when of course Shark Tank wasn't there, right? People used to ask आप करते क्या हो? तुम startups में invest करते हैं, right? So but now I think the conversation has become much easier. आप क्या करते हो? जो Shark Tank में आता है बस वही करते हैं. So very, very, I think that thing has become. So let's, I think, start with on a lighter note. It's going to be a very fun interactive session. I think one thing that was not covered about me was when I was in college, I was also doing stand-up comedy side by side to support my passion. So I always believe in good crowd work, good interaction. So English and Hindi, we'll dabble a bit both in between, है ना? So both the languages are fine to all of you? Good. आप ना भी बोलते तो भी मेरे पास ऑप्शन नहीं था. तो मेरे को मराठी तो इतनी अच्छी आती नहीं है. तो first, I think first story I think is about education, right? Everything I think starts with education. When you educate a child, you educate a village around them, right? So I think for me, of course, education was something which was very deep rooted because my mother herself is a teacher, right? And not just an ordinary teacher, the mathematics teacher, right? जिससे हम सबको डर लगता था. So my mom was of course very strict sometimes. मतलब of course बाकी के बेटों को तो कोई नहीं मारती, but मम्मी अपने बेटे को तो कभी भी मार ही देती है. And she used to of course have tuitions also, so I used to study with of course a lot of people. तो मेरी डांट सिर्फ मेरे तक नहीं होती थी, वो सोशल होती थी पूरी. So actually फाड़ का नाम वहीं से आया क्योंकि मम्मी बहुत ज़्यादा फाड़ देती थी पहले. So it started, I think, with that, right? But going ahead, of course, The idea was, in fact, I was playing cricket also in school because dad चाहते थे cricketer बने, mom चाहती थी बेटा पढ़ाई करे, but eventually, as they say, मम्मी ही जीतती हैं. So of course, then when I went into my class 10th तक तो of course I was a average child, but when I went into my class 12th, right, the idea was, the goal was very clear. So of course, I wanted to do something on the business front, right? Because in my childhood, I was dabbling between cricket, which also was my first passion. Then I was dabbling between studies, right? Then I was dabbling between I was very active in quizzes in college and a lot of business plans and competitions, whatever. So I was dabbling in multiple things right throughout. Abhi bhi dabble kar raha hu. So I think, but then when, of course, the line was clear that I have to go, of course, get a great college, right? I have to study. And to give you certain context, right? So since I come from Delhi, the nearest university was Delhi University, right? Which is considered one of the best, not just in India, but the world. And as you know, getting as a commerce, like since I had commerce, getting as a commerce student an admission in Delhi University, even at 95%, you don't get the best of the colleges. Even at 95%, right? Even at 96%, I've seen, of course, last few years since the result has gone up so much, that even at 96%, people are not getting their desired colleges. Cutoffs are closing at even 100%, right? So many colleges in Delhi University announced that they have a 100% cutoff. So it was like, if you don't study, if you don't get marks, of course, you won't get there. But rather than focusing on academics, I was focusing on business. I was focusing on a very different element. I'll just put this side here. So rather than focusing on academics, rather than focusing on just an academic college, I was focusing on a business plus academics college, is a B school, which is very unordinary for a person in undergraduate to go for a B school. Typically, you see people do their, of course, bachelor's degree, right? BB or whatever, and then they go to of course, a formal B school, which of course are there in the country. But even my brother was from that same B school, right? And even I wanted to do something different, right? Because I was always dabbling between multiple professions. So I was like, academics is definitely one of the ways in which you can excel, right? But what is the end goal that you are chasing? So I wanted to break out and just study about business. And I had multiple options. Even I was giving law exams, everything. But my first core aim was that I had to get admission in this prestigious B school. When I looked at the list of B schools, right, the top one in India was a B school called Shaheed Sukhdev, which is a part of Delhi University. Now, I was like, theek hai. Even my brother went there, and of course, he settled then in US with McKinsey. He became a senior partner there. So I thought it's a very short life to success. I'll also study for it. But then when I looked at the metrics, I thought it's virtually impossible. There were just 31 seats, right? And there were about 10,000 plus people appearing for the exam. So it was like the IIT JEE of commerce. So I thought it's virtually impossible because, like, you have the best of the minds, best of the people with the best of the percentages around you. Then you have an entrance exam to crack, right? How would you crack an entrance exam, right? And how would you get admission? And I wanted to study on finance. I was very good with numbers right from my school, courtesy to my mathematics mom as well. So I always wanted to, of course, study finance as my majors in business. So I just gave it my all. I thought there is no other option, right? If this is what you want to do, this is what you have to prepare for. And you have to prepare it with, of course, also doing your academics side by side, because if you get less than 95%, 96%, you won't be able to get into the B school. Because in our time, the composition was 50% was your entrance exam, 30% was your class 12th marks, 10 marks for your group discussion, 10 marks for your personal interview. So I thought if I don't study, my 30% would be affected. So I have to manage both my academics and my entrance exam preparation. So I just gave it my all, studied hard. And when, of course, the results came out, I got, of course, an All India rank of 50, right? And that moment in my life, I really felt extremely happy that I'll finally be able to take admission. I took admission in that B school, right, my dream school, right, and rejected all the offers that I had, right. Although my dad was always optimizing, right. Dads always optimize careers, right. अच्छा बेटा इसका ये भी apply कर दे, उसका वो भी apply कर दे, इसकी last date पे इसको ना बोलना, उसकी last date पे उसको ना बोलना, so that you are actually playing with multiple probabilities at hand. So फाइनली व्हेन दैट केम आउट मैंने कहा डैड अब मैं कहीं अपने पेपर्स लेके एक कॉलेज से दूसरे कॉलेज नहीं जाऊंगा एडमिशन लेने, राइट. वील फाइनली टेक एन एडमिशन इन दिस कॉलेज एंड ऑफ कोर्स स्टडी. फर्स्ट ईयर ऑफ माय कॉलेज ऑफ कोर्स आई स्टार्टेड इन went into dramatics, went into stand-up comedy also. Didn't even realize कि ठीक है ये भी एक चीज़ है that I can possibly do, but just happened. Long story for that, but we'll of course discuss some other day. But in that B school, I realized, of course, that I had the best of the peers, right? The lowest percentage, in fact, in my class was 95.75%, right? So you have the best of the person in your class, and it was a very small class also. तो कभी आपको छुट्टी भी मारनी हो तो वो भी impossible था, because teacher सबको by name जानता था. So that was also there, but I think that whole environment, rather than learning about a lot of new subjects, I think I learned the best from the environment that was around there, because it was such a competitive environment where everybody was asking the right questions, where everybody was focused towards academic excellence, where even the professors themselves had the reputation of carrying the college, right, and carrying the strength of the results. That of course it helped me to of course focus and concentrate on my goals better. And as they always say that if you are the smartest guy in the room, you are in the wrong room, right? So I was definitely in the right room, because I was not the smartest guy at all. So, but of course I wanted it to be there, because I thought if I have come so far, I've taken this admission, why to of course move ahead from there. But one thing I realized, that most of the B schools, the academics was very focused towards, let's say, a management excellency. We were studying subjects like corporate finance, corporate governance, valuations, right? Even tricky subjects like econometrics, right? Which I still don't understand how many models are there, right? Then of course, even more subjects like ethical and social responsibility in governance practice, like very course specific subjects. But I thought the application of it was extremely limited, because by the time the internship came out in the second year, most of the students, rather than going towards business, were going towards management consultancy and audit firms, right? And that's when I spoke to my principal also, that ma'am, it's a B school. Why aren't people doing business? Tell me. And when I asked her the data from it, ma'am, how much percentage of the batch, right, the alumni are into business right now? And when I drilled down the numbers, it was less than 5%. I was like, ma'am, it's the top B school in India, but why aren't we producing more business people? Why are we producing just management consultants? Why are we producing just people for MBAs? Why are we just producing people for your audit roles or whatever, for finance roles? Why aren't somebody graduating from this school and starting their own business? And that's when it struck me that I don't have to get in the line of my placement room where there are already thousands of people with CVs in their hand. I want to do something, right? That's when I think, of course, I started, of course, my multiple things happened. So my whole exploration inside college, my whole journey began, right? The first thing I did, I started moving out of my classes and started thinking, what more can I do? My college was, of course, now is, of course, in a locality, but earlier it was very close to a village, like very close to a slum dwelling in East Delhi, right? So when I was free from my colleges, I did not, मेरे को मन नहीं करता था कि घर में जाऊं, तो मैं पास वाले of course गांव में चले जाता था. And in one of these visits, I realized a student was like, two children were talking to each other. A boy said to the girl कि तुझे क्या अपना जितना तूने last year का पढ़ा था सारा याद है? They had like one class difference. And she said, मुझे कुछ याद नहीं है. वो तो एग्जाम दे दिया, खत्म हो गया. एग्जाम के बाद मुझे कुछ याद नहीं है. एंड वो सेट किया, तुझे याद नहीं तो मुझे कौन पढ़ाएगा? So that's when I think realized one thing, कि the education in India is mostly limited to passing exams. Like it's like from one exam to the other, right? And clearing an exam does not mean that you know the subject. I'm pretty sure we have all cleared some exams where we didn't even know one answer of it, right? But we somehow either cheated by hook or crook or by whatever, right? Not judging all of you, I have also done that. But we have actually cleared maybe sometime in our lives we have done that or observed people doing that. So that's one thing I realized. And then the second thing I realized was that education has made us, right, into very straight-jacketed classes and sections, right? So first class, second class, third class. Our learning is divided into years with classes coming every year. But is learning a very watertight thing? Shouldn't learning be spread across? For example, and this is what I said to myself, if let's say a student in class 4th want to know what trigonometry is, right? Which is, of course, as you know, is a class 10th, 11th subject, right? What does that person have to wait for 6 years to study that topic? Won't the learning be affected, right? And that is where it struck me that I think how education is going on in India is that bit different from what learning and holistic development as we talk about should be. Because education is not just for people who want to just know the syllabus. It is also for people who want to know beyond the syllabus. So I started then my campaign called, my yatra called Education Yatra, where I started that in villages way back in my college, where my solution was simple. I thought, rather than making it into classes, let me break it down into different intellectual grades. Grade A, grade B, and grade C. Let me first divide the books on different grades, right? So grade A would be for someone who's, of course, let's say has a more high IQ or has a bent towards learning more things beyond the syllabus. Grade B for someone, of course, who's an intermediate, who can, let's say, do 1 or 2 classes ahead, but maybe not that much ahead. And grade C was somebody who's, I want to just like keep it as it is, but focus on their weaker areas, right? Because I realized that education is always best of 4, right? But life shouldn't be a best of 4. You have to know about every subject. So let me focus on what their 5th weakest subject could be and focus on that. It could be EVS for someone, it could be English for someone. I graded these books and then I started teaching them in villages. What started, of course, as teaching just 1 or 2 children then turned out to be, of course, a revolution where I taught about 3,000 to 4,000 students. And that then escalated from the slums of East Delhi to many slums across Delhi NCR. And it was never, of course, supposed to be it was just an initiative, not an organization, no revenues, nothing of that sorts. The idea was simple, just teach, and that turned out to be my own mission. That was my first step that I saw, right? I'll move ahead from this because there are many stories and I'll ask, of course, take most of that in questions also. I think that now the next story that I want to talk about is, so my life, of course, when this was happening parallelly, the reason I did stand up was because since I was not making money from this, but sometimes I had to pay for the books. Sometimes I had to pay even for the school fees because when I was teaching children, the parents were resistant, right? So sometimes I had to pay for the school fees. Sometimes even police would used to catch me when way earlier कि ये कौन पढ़ा रहा है so I had to just of course have money, so इसलिए I started stand up and of course all of that. Now moving ahead into the next piece of life, my internship of course at Faad also was blooming side by side. I was doing many events. So we started of course as Faad, right? हमें पता ही नहीं था कि company का क्या करना है. I was telling this to Harsh, right? We just kept the name as Faad. Because there was a movie, I don't know if you would seen this or remember, called Dhol आई थी एक ढोल करके, was a comedy movie, Rajpal Yadav and of course Kunal Khemu and all these like 3-4 guys, right? तुषार कपूर, yeah. So उस मूवी में था कि एक डायलॉग था कि कंपनी का नाम क्या होना चाहिए, लाइक जो एकदम से निकले मुंह से. उस मूवी वो कहते थूक, कहते नहीं वो तो नाम अच्छा नहीं लगेगा. तो हमने जब ये सोचा ये डायलॉग, हमने कहा हमें एक वर्ड नाम क्या है जो एकदम से निकलेगा, एंड देन वी सेड फाड़. So we bought the domain name in 2013, then decided what to do with the company in 2015, and then eventually did what we are doing in 2020. So it's been a long journey. So when I was doing we were still figuring out what to do. We were just doing events. So हम ऐसे ही मतलब used to book places like these, do events without any agenda. This of course has a much specific agenda. हम तो सिर्फ ऐसे ही बोलते थे, like an open networking meet, just meet people. So we did such of these events, about 43 events in 7 cities of India. And that's when we realized that I think the biggest pain point is funding, right? And that's where our journey of fundraising began. And by the time I graduated college, I had already facilitated in funding of five startups. In fact, the first startup, as Harsh also said, most of our startups are about inclusion. Our first startup was a company called Clear Dekho. I'm not sure if how many of you, has anybody heard of that company, Clear Dekho? Entrepreneurs would have heard of the company. So Clear Dekho was, of course, towards vision inclusion, right? They were selling lenses and eyewear at about $700, when of course the biggest competitor at quality affordable glasses at $700. And rather than going into malls, right? Their shops were in Talwandi, in Kota, right? They started out of Ghaziabad, which is again not the best of, let's say, the uprooted places in Delhi also, right? Started out of a very small suburb in Ghaziabad. Now, of course, when we invested in them, they had one store. And now they have about 113 stores across India. So that was the first company that I selected for fundraising. And again, my knack of numbers, my knack of analyzing opportunities, breaking down businesses came into foray. And my investors, now that I proudly say so, made 17 times return on that investment in the first 1.5 years, in just 1.5 years. So I think this is the power of inclusion, right? We talk about selling eyewear glasses. You step out of this hotel, within the range of 5 kilometers, you will find at least 2 or 3 eyewear shops. But such is the potential of India, right? Such is the potential of India that if you have a clear vision, right, your business plan execution can happen without any limitation. And now, of course, Clear Dekho has a clear vision that they want to impart 1 billion lives, right? And they're already in that mission through their 113 stores, and they'll be opening about 200 this year. So when that happened, I thought, this is my thing. This is something that I want to do full time. I finally want to settle and, of course, do that thing. But what happened, of course, from my peers was also inspiring. My other two bosses now my partners in crime in the business. They said, why don't you join us as the third one? Why don't you become the face of the company? Why don't you become the CEO? And here I was, I thought, I'm short of attendance in my V school, where I'll probably not get a good placement, and probably that's not my mojo as well. And here on the other side, of course, I have an opportunity to become the CEO of an investment banking firm at the age of course, 21. Let me take my shot. And I did. And of course, ride wasn't easy because again, mummy was again ki tura cricket to chudwaya tha, ab tune ye bhi start kar diya. Dad was also like, hey, what he's doing, because I'm the first generation entrepreneur from my family, as you would have heard in the videos also. So I think in that sense, yeah, the journey started. Then of course, I'll probably cover this in some other stories, but long story short, our investments skyrocketed when COVID happened because a lot of that started moving online. People from not just Delhi, but from outside Delhi also started hearing Zoom recordings. The first 1.5 years, we funded 5 companies. The next year, we funded 26. After that, we funded 32. Then we funded about 36, 37. Last year, we did, of course, 37 and became 12th in the top rankings of startup investors in India. So, and we are very proud of the journey because every company that has given us extreme amount of returns is razor focused towards some sort of a society upliftment. Clear Dekho is of course one of them. Then we have Blue Smart. I'm not sure if you've traveled to Delhi, Bombay or Delhi and Bangalore. You would have seen an EV cab, right? Which of course is there at Delhi airport. So very frequently if you go anywhere in Delhi airport, you will see it flooded with Blue Smarts. Which they are an EV cab. In fact, they were the first in this industry to produce an EV cab that comes at your place and provides you no cancellation pickup. So you can book it in advance one day before or whenever the slots are available, some hours before. The cab comes to your service, gives a great customer experience. I'm not saying it, you can test it out for yourself, and has a zero cancellation model, right? Unlike an Uber and Ola, where of course you're stuck with cancellations. And that also was a bold investment of its time that we made in 2017, right? 2018-19, because everybody was like, why can't Uber do this? Even in Shark Tank now, if you would seen when you're talking about AI, all the questions are, why can't Google do this? I think everybody can do this if they want to, but it's just a matter of focus. If you are focused enough, there is a market out there and you can still capture it. Blue Smart, of course, now has about 5,000 fleets in of course in Delhi and Bangalore, and now they are of course shifting pan India also. They've completed over 10 million rides already. The third company, and this is probably the last company that I'll talk about because there are so many companies, so probably it's some other day, of course, of that. The third company which gave us tremendous amounts of returns and redefined us as well. And we were the only angel investors who took bet in that company. And we realized this much before, that EVs are going to definitely be the thing. Because by 2030, right, the government aim is to have automation everywhere. Every car that runs on the road should be an EV vehicle. So we realized that with so much vehicles would be there on the road, who would take care of the batteries, right? Unlike petrol, you can refuel it at stations available. But so much of mass would go out in the market. How would you recycle it, right? Because this is lithium ion or this is sodium that we are talking about. These are harmful gases. If they are not recycled in the proper manner, or if they are not swapped in the proper manner, how would you do this? And let's say if electric vehicle comes on the road tomorrow, they get stuck at in some highway in Jaipur, where is a petrol station nearby? Where is a refueling station nearby? So we realized that there is so much, and there is still so much amount of tremendous potential in the recycling industry. So we looked at this company called Battery Smart, which was a swapping solution. So imagine like a F1. You've all seen the How many of you seen the F1 race? A lot of you. So like the F1 race, where the car comes in, stops at a pit stop, right? The tires get changed, the chassis, everything gets changed in like 4 to 5 seconds. Probably that, because if you're doing more than that, then you're losing out on the race. Rather than waiting for the time to have your stations, your refueling stations develop, why can't there be a swapping technology, right? Like the F1 model, just plug out your battery, swap with the charged one already. We invested in this company called Battery Smart, which started, of course, with 10 batteries in one station. Now, of course, they have about 4 lakh, 5 lakh batteries that they are processing monthly. And the impact is massive. They're working with some of the best players. They're funded by the biggest giant in the industry called Tiger Global, which is the biggest investor of the world. And we are the only angel investors. We are the only crazy ones who saw a potential in that. And that opportunity, now that of course we publicly spoken it, gave our investors a 48x return in about 2 years of time. So I think, yeah, I don't need to tell more stories on how startups with impact or a vision are actually changing us, and they've they've actually changed even my opinion that startups with impact or a vision are not high generating businesses. They in fact generate double the returns of a normal business. So yeah, that's the thing. Now I think we've spoken pretty much on a lot of things. My last segment of story that I want to speak about, and after that, of course, more questions from your end, is when all of this was happening, I was very happy that my bets are picking up, right? In clear dekho, I had to take 6 months to convince my investors put in capital. Battery smart, I had to, because I was a commerce kid, I had to study all the battery chemistry, battery management systems, how does it swapping works. So when I'm doing all of this, the hard work was of course showing results. But I was realizing that again one thing, that was always the mission of my life, that since I've entered this industry very young, right? Probably, in fact, I'm the youngest partner in the VC industry till date, right? Why I'm not actually amplifying my work or what I'm learning and share it with students, share it with people around, share it in the whatever format, right? Be it through speeches, be it through stories, be it through content, be it through whatever. Why am I not amplifying this work? क्यों नहीं बता रहा मैं लोग को? मैं isolation में जिंदगी जीते रहूँगा तो that would just impact me. मतलब मैं खुश हो जाऊँगा, company grow हो जाएगी. But that's not my mission, right? I've lost that welfare. I said to myself कि आदित्य तूने वो welfare वाला जो touch है ना education यात्रा वाला वो थोड़ा miss out कर रहा है तू. COVID also happened and I was thinking this at home. I thought let's start it. I created, of course, an account. मतलब I turned my account on Instagram into a professional one. जितनी मेरी embarrassing personal photos थी सारी delete करी. मैंने कहा अब इसी को ही live बनाता हूँ. I'll start creating content on this platform, right? फिर side by side LinkedIn भी चालू करा. I was at about 10,000 followers. वो भी सारे college वाले बच्चे थे जिनकी accept करी थी. क्योंकि बचपन में वो कॉलेज में खेलते थे किसके ज़्यादा कनेक्शन है तो थोड़ी ज़्यादा रिक्वेस्ट एक्सेप्ट कर ली थी. बट व्हेन ऑफ कोर्स आई थॉट कि नाउ लेट्स क्रिएट कंटेंट. कोविड में टाइम भी था, राइट? तो आई थॉट लेट्स स्टार्ट दैट. सो आई स्टार्टेड दैट. इनफैक्ट माई फर्स्ट वीडियो वॉज वेरी फर्स्ट वीडियो स्टिल रिमेंबर वॉज एंजल इन्वेस्टर्स कौन होते हैं, राइट? एंड मैंने उनको समझाया भी ऐसे कि मानो कि आप एक बर्थडे पार्टी ऑर्गेनाइज कर रहे हो, ठीक है, अपने दोस्तों के साथ, और आपका बजट है 100 रुपये, बट आपके पापा ने आपको एक भी पैसा नहीं दिया. अब आपने पार्टी ऑर्गेनाइज कर ली, ठीक है, और आपके 10 दोस्तों को बुलाया और सबने पार्टी एंजॉय भी करी, बट अब आप पैसे कैसे दोगे? तो आपके 10 दोस्त डिसाइड करते कि वो 10-10 रुपये इक्वली वो करके पूल इन करके आपके पैसे पे करेंगे. ये 10 लोग आपके एंजल इन्वेस्टर हुए जो कि अमाउंट इक्वली डिवाइड करके आपके बिजनेस में हेल्प करते सपोर्ट करने के लिए. Very childish video, very simple, but it picked up. It hit 1 million views in 1 week, and from 400-500 followers, my account suddenly grew to about 1,500-2,000 के आसपास. Then फिर अगली वीडियो सेम पार्टी में थी कि वेंचर कैपिटलिस्ट कौन होते हैं. So I was like, अगर आपके पापा आपको पैसे देते हैं इस बार और कहते हैं बेटा इस पार्टी से अब मेरे को डबल रिटर्न्स चाहिए तो इसके आपके पापा इस सेंस में आपके पार्टी के वेंचर कैपिटलिस्ट हुए क्योंकि दोस्तों की तरह आपको पापा को तो पैसे देने हैं. सो मेड लाइक फन फॉर्मेट, वेरी इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड वीडियोज. दैट ऑल्सो डिड एक्सट्रीमली वेल एंड धीरे धीरे देन इट पिक्ड अप. देन पीपल स्टार्टेड कॉलिंग मी टू कॉलेज इवेंट्स वगैरह भी कि आओ जस्ट शेयर योर जर्नी. एंड नाम ही कंपनी का इतना यूनिक था कि मैं जब स्टेज पे जाता बोलते थे अरे फाड़ वाला आ गया, फाड़ वाला आ गया. That Faad guy has come in. That Faad guy is coming. So वहीं पे सोचा यार ये सब फाड़ guy बोलते हैं तो एक अपना नाम ही रख लेते हैं, the Faad guy. So we went and patented the Faad guy on my name. And the journey after that, of course, is extremely different, right? So now, of course, on LinkedIn as well, as Harsh very well told, I talk about businesses. On Instagram, I talk about these business case studies in a much more simpler format because that's mostly for younger audience. And both of these platforms are doing extremely well. On Instagram, in fact, also I have hit about 100K followers. So जब लोग वीडियो शेयर करते हैं, कमेंट करते हैं कि सर बहुत अच्छा लगा, ये चीज़ मेरे को डाउट आ रहा था, आई ऑल्सो रिस्पॉन्ड टू DMs. So then I feel कि ठीक है, जितना भी लिमिटेड कैपेसिटी में I can do, I'm helping out people. My way of content is just that only. I have no PR team, no production team, कुछ नहीं है. Just मैं, मेरा भाई और एक editor, and we create this content all throughout. I still to date write my stories on LinkedIn by myself. I haven't hired anybody. इतना लोगों ने बोला यार, you have so much, you can hire anybody, but I still write to myself. In fact, अब जो मैं Monday story लिखनी है, जो मैंने लिख पाया, I've got my laptop, I have written in my draft, I'll go and complete in today evening. So that's the fun, right? That's another story. Coming to I think the last one around, very important, that's pertinent to the topic, and I wanted to end this with a hard story, is around inclusive entrepreneurship and inclusive education, right? For me, inclusivity, I think, is not just about any model or framework, it's actually in the ground there and working with people. That's the best form of inclusion, understanding their needs. I follow a simple format, which is say, identify the need, identify the market, fulfill that need, and grow. Simple, right? So when I was looking at this, how can I impact more? This social media content is still limited to people who have mobile phones and internet. What about people at the grassroots level who don't know what Instagram is? Instagram भी बहुत पॉपुलर नहीं है, कितने ही उसमें आप मान लो 20 करोड़ लोग, 30 करोड़ लोग भी होंगे तो भी 130 करोड़ 140 करोड़ वाला देश है हमारा, राइट? तो आई वाज लाइक यार 100 के हो गए क्या है, मतलब ये आपको % जनता भी नहीं जानती है. दिस इज नॉट रियल एक्चुअल इम्पैक्ट, और यू हैव टू डू. That's when then I fortunately crossed paths with, of course, a group of researchers who were basically presenting a proposal to Delhi government. Now, Delhi government was running different form, to give you context, was running different form of classes for students in Delhi government schools. एक happiness curriculum, अगर आपने शायद ही नाम अगर सुना होगा, where of course focus is on well-being, mental well-being and mental health. Delhi government was already running a scheme on that called the happiness curriculum. And the group of researchers were trying to do something around entrepreneurship. This I realized जब मुझे उड़ते उड़ते कोई खबर आई कि आप पार्टी की एक बैठक सुनो, उसमें they'll talk about this. I thought यार मेरे को कुछ politics वगैरह से लेना देना नहीं है. कहते नहीं उस चीज़ के नहीं. But still specifically a researcher would come and would share एक idea about entrepreneurship. तो मैंने सुना, and I reached out to that the group of researchers after that. In their idea was simple. What we were trying to do is we were trying to create an entrepreneurship mindset curriculum, where the idea was how can we teach entrepreneurship, which is a very practical subject. You can't teach entrepreneurship without doing entrepreneurship in the first place, to students in government schools. कैसे पढ़ाएं, मतलब कैसे करिकुलम कैसे बनाएं, मतलब वी डोंट वांट कि हम एक ऐसा करिकुलम बना दे कि ठीक है फर्स्ट थिंग गो टू मार्केट पढ़ाएंगे, फिर प्रोडक्ट डेवलपमेंट, वो तो फिर थ्योरी हो जाएगा. देन आई मेट देम, आई थॉट आई हैव सम आइडियाज. वी सैट डाउन, वी रिसर्च्ड टुगेदर, वी ब्रेनस्टॉर्म एन अनयूजुअल आइडिया which everybody laughed. Since I was a man of stories, I thought let's teach it through stories. But not success stories, failure stories से पढ़ाते हैं. Because success, you're always jealous. अरे यार successful है. You're always chasing success, right? Chase success. Failures are always relatable. You always relate with failures. So I thought अगर हम उनको ना सक्सेसफुल बोलेंगे ना तो वो चेज ही करते रह जाएंगे. इतनी बड़ी विजन दिखा देंगे कि मार्केट इतना बड़ा है, वो इंस्पायर हो जाएंगे, मोटिवेट हो जाएंगे. मोटिवेशन तब तक ही अच्छी होती है जब तक क्लास खत्म होती है, उसके बाद वापस से दिन चालू. सो थॉट नहीं यार, लेट्स टॉक अबाउट फेलियर्स. वो रिलेट कर पाएंगे. दे ऑल्सो स्टूडेंट गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स, दे डोंट कम फ्रॉम प्रिविलेज बैकग्राउंड, उन्होंने भी काफ़ी फेलियर देखे होंगे जिंदगी में, रिलेट कर पाएंगे. अब हम गए, हमने एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर को प्रेजेंट करा. उन्होंने कहा चाय में कुछ मिला है क्या आप लोगों ने कि आप ये चीज़ बोल रहे हो. उन्होंने कहा सर आप एक बार ट्राई करके देखो. मजा आएगा. So we somehow convinced him, and we tested it on a batch of 20,000 students. For 2 to 3 months एक pilot चला April में, way back in 2019-20 के आसपास. That did well, right? But the game changer was for the minister also. Lot of things happened well. Students, in fact, we conducted a post-evaluation survey. We asked them 2-3 questions. The first one was, how do you feel with yourself? Confident, underconfident, very confident, average. Most of the students ticked confident. That learning entrepreneurship through failure stories is not just about like becoming a business person. It's actually about learning to bounce back from failures. And when that thing happened, the minister got excited. But the second thing that happened got him even more, that it turned into a policy. About, I would say 10 to 12% students on a small batch, जब उनके उस टाइम पे आपके यूनिट टेस्ट हुए थे, they said they have experienced an improvement in results also. They have excelled better at academics also. And that is when the game changer thought changed. कि हम जो सोच रहे थे वो सिर्फ entrepreneurship सोच रहे थे. That is definitely the aim. But our aim is to actually do the whole character development of these students. And that, when that result came out, it turned into a nationwide policy. It turned into an all Delhi state government policy. Now, every student, about 5-6 lakh students are still studying under this scheme. Every day, first period of the school, first period. As teachers, educators in the room, you know the importance of first period. सब active होते उस time पे. The first period in the school, students for 28 to 30 minutes study about entrepreneurship from either their teacher or an industry expert from outside through failure stories. And not only now we are supporting them through failure stories. In fact, शायद इस ये बारे में शायद आपने सुना होगा because इसकी PR अच्छी हुई थी. We thought they're learning on entrepreneurship. Let's give them a platform to develop their own ventures. So we launched another program called Business Blasters program, which was like a Shark Tank, just like a Shark Tank, but that came on Doordarshan, right? So we said we have about 2 lakh students who are interested to build their own ventures out of 5 lakh, 6 lakh students. Let's give these 2 lakh students, right, 3,000 rupees each. 60 crores का एक budget बनाया. Let's give them that. And इनको बोलते हैं कि इन 3,000 rupees से, with real cash, this is not virtual currency, real cash, आप जाओ and कुछ business, कुछ products बना के लेके आओ. Do some business, right? That happened, and we said कि इसका competition करेंगे. Student, like industry experts would judge the competition. एक mentor भी होगा, where in every कुछ एक hours हम allocate करेंगे. I'll not go very much into the depth of the program, but कुछ hours allocate करेंगे, where mentors have to spend time with the students. And then एक presentation होगी. पहले एक district level से बच्चे उठाएंगे, फिर state level पे एक exhibition करेंगे, where students can depict it. So then, of course, we started with this first version जो हमने करा. Students के बहुत innovative ideas आए, बहुत. मतलब कोई innovative chocolates बना रहा है, किसी ने एक modern art gallery बना रखी है, एक ने तो एक AI application ही बना दी, right? मतलब this was unbelievable कि students in Delhi government are actually learning about this, building their own ventures. And then we selected 110 for the final fair that we did in Pragati Maidan, Delhi, where we depicted 110 teams. These 110 teams showcased their products to almost 5,000 plus investors, startup founders, enthusiasts who turned up for the conference. And about 60-70 teams also showcased on the Doordarshan program called Business Blasters. And one of the startups, the modern art one, also got funded from the Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma, Ola founder Bhavesh Agarwal. So, and to get even further educational support to them, a new kind of college or council was set up called the Delhi Skills Entrepreneurship University, DSEU, where these students, the winners of these challenges, were given automatic qualifications to study under the colleges in DSEU. It was a course called Bachelor's in Venture Development, Entrepreneurship and Venture Development. And now we are in the 3rd edition of Business Blasters. Entrepreneurship Mindset curriculum has been running for the last 5 years. And I actually felt peace with myself that I've gone and spoken to these students. इनको basic से चीज़ें बताई हैं कि idea, prototype, MVP, ये चीज़ें क्या होती हैं. अपनी journey से, failure story से, और founders की failure story से, सब कुछ करके we have told them, right? And then also parallelly, even with another mission I was involved, which was this one is quite popular. It's called Atal Innovation Mission by Niti Aayog, if you would have heard. This is a pan-India mission where there are scientific labs, right? STEM kits, robo kits are given to students from class 6 to class 12th, right? And they are told कि आप कुछ build something innovative. And they are set up inside the school with a real mentor, with a full-time mentor who supports them at school. So even in that perspective, I was mildly involved, but more so, of course, with Delhi government. And now I advise Delhi government on this officially. In fact, जो content मैं बनाता था Instagram के लिए, I made it for them also, and those now, the small videos, I wish I'll of course share it with all of you later also. कि वो videos से students are learning about entrepreneurship. So yeah, I think I'll end my speech at that, and yeah, I'm happy to take in more questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aditya. I think after he's spoken, we all have a very good idea on why he's the Faad guy and the kind of Faad energy he has. He's already started breaking the ceiling. So let's take some questions from the audience.
Thanks, Aditya. Nikhil here. You are playing a dual role. Acha, sure, sir. You are playing a dual role, right? You are an investor as well as you are an entrepreneur. So there are two questions for these two perspectives. What do you think that a startup needs actually right now? When we're talking in 2024, as this mission actually taken a shape in 2014, after a 10 years of journey, what startup actually needs right now?
Got it. See, as you say, startup needs everything, as in there is no one thing that I can point you out ki, because a funded startup would need guidance, an unfunded startup would need funding, an ideation startup would need mentorship, right? So startups are also of different forms and natures, right? At what stage of the journey you are. So there is no one answer to it, but I think right now it's just about one answer, if I have to put it, it's about the understanding of the market. Right, because markets are evolving so faster, right? आप पहले अगर बोलते थे कि Zomato कि food aggregators कितने हैं, तो आपको शायद एक भी नाम नहीं पता होगा, but now आज आप 6-7 बता सकते हो, right? या पहले आपको बोलो कि आप online पे कैसे करोगे, आपको शायद एक तो भी option नहीं बताओगे, but आज आप 15 बता सकते हो. So I think the markets have become so competitive that it's the understanding of how exact can you be different, right? And differentiation should not always be कि idea किसका different है. Idea तो सबका ही same होता है. No idea is different, right? It's just about the execution. How you are making your execution very different. That is that one thing that you need to have clarity about. That A, what is happening in my market, and B, how would I execute? Yeah, that's one thing.
Okay, well now you said something that unfunded startups, non-funded startups requires a funding, but non-funded startups can be bootstrapped also.
Absolutely.
Right. So now, what do you think? It's not about right time, but what do you think? Which will be an appropriate time for a startup or an innovator to raise the funds?
Very good question. Man, yeah, absolutely. Startups can grow without funding also. In fact, the last story that I wrote was about Zoho, right? An unfunded startup with 9,000 plus crore. 9,000 is a very estimate number because they haven't raised funds at all. So very big valuation. So I think the best time to raise funds is when you've exhausted your own resources and you can still see growth, right? As simply as I put it, when you've put in everything, when you've put in your capital also, your skin in the game also, when you've spoken with the customers, they are willing to buy your product or service, but to service them, you need capital. And you can't get it from business, you can't get it by rotation of capital, you can't get it from loan or any other thing. You can't put in your own capital also. That's when you've exhausted all your resources, you need funds to survive and grow automatically. Yeah.
Okay, the last question from my end. Now, is this Faad Capital is a angel investor firm or VC firm?
So we are mix of both now. So one is of course our angel deals that still keep going on. But now we are also setting up an in-house VC fund, right? Wherein we'll pre-commit to a startup and we'll come in at the larger checks of the company.
And which mode you prefer, the equity or Keynotes or safe notes?
So generally for us it's everything equity. Everything that can be converted to equity is something that it's preferable to us.
So are you using safe notes with the startups
We in India generally don't do. We use convertibles. US companies generally use on safe notes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Aditya, what is the story behind the story of finding these stories, which you put on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's another interesting story. एकदम inception हो गया ये. Yep. So see, I think this is also something that मेरे mind में कुछ ना कुछ चलता ही रहता है. मेरे काफी खुराफाती mind है. तो I was just sitting one day and realizing कि there are a lot of businesses in India. In fact, one of my friends was running a very great like listed company, papers बनाते हैं वो. And उससे बात कर रहा था and I realized कि मतलब they have such a big turnover. They may not have a big valuation because they haven't gone ahead and raised funds from the market ever because they didn't need to. धंधा था उनका अच्छा. So I realized that there are so many of these businesses like these which never come out, right? I'm sure Nishit bhai would also agree, right? कि कितने सारे ऐसे businesses होंगे like जो हम बोलते हैं ना सेट्स होते हैं, जो सेट होते हैं जो एक business वाला person होता है जो एक वो आपको लगेगा भी सामने से कि वो business वाला है. So simple, right? They are so authentic and they are so down to earth. Their stories never come out. Stories of ये स्टार्टअप ने इतने वैल्यूएशन पे पैसा उठा लिया वो ही कवर होता है. मार्केट में घूमता ही है कि वैल्यूएशन किसकी ज्यादा बढ़ रही है, धंधा किसने बनाया ये तो आज तक कोई नहीं बोलता है. So that's when I realized why not try and bring out certain stories. So I started with stories. My very first story was of Nadia Chauhan, who's the executive director of Parle Agro Foods. And she launched Appy Fizz. She actually took over Fruity and made it a 1,000 crore brand, right? She was the instrumental in success of many, many companies inside Parle Agro. I'm saying ki these are the actual stories we talk about. People would know, let's say, no offense, people would know Vinita or people would know Namita Thapar because they are mainstream. But nobody would know of Nadia Chauhan. How many of you would know Nadia Chauhan isse pehle? See the room, right? So that's when I started posting. The Nadia Chauhan story went blisteringly viral. That's one of my most viral. Got about 80 lakh views. And I thought, बस सब start करते हैं. Then one by one, मैं women entrepreneurs पे cover करता रहा. फिर सारे men comment करते थे, सर हमारे men के बारे में भी cover करो. Then I did women entrepreneurs for 2-3 months. Then फिर men entrepreneurs. अब मार्च से वापस से women entrepreneurs को cover करूँगा. So that's the story behind that. And it's my small little contribution. I don't charge for these stories at all. I don't have a, मैं फाउंडर से भी बात नहीं करता कि आप मेरे को एक स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चंस भेज के भेजो कि ये लिखना है वो लिखना है. मैं कुछ नहीं करता ना, मैं पहले से सोचता भी हूँ. मैं जिस दिन लिखता हूँ उसी दिन डिसाइड करता हूँ किसके बारे में लिखना है ताकि मेरे माइंड में कोई प्री कंसीव नोशंस पहले से ना आए. एंड दिस इज इट टेक्स मी 2.5 hours टू राइट वन स्टोरी. ये समटाइम्स इवन 3.5. डेटा अवेलेबल नहीं होता तो बहुत पहले तक जाना पड़ता है. जैसे अभी मैंने वेदांता की स्टोरी लिखी थी तो मेरे को 1990s के फाइनेंशियल्स निकालने थे, बट लिस्टिंग उसकी 1996 बाद में हुई थी, तो मेरे को पहले के फाइनेंशियल्स ढूंढने में बहुत टाइम लगा. बट इट्स जस्ट द जॉय, आई एंजॉय. मेरे को 2.5 आवर्स मेरे कहाँ पता चलते हैं, मैं फ़ोन चेक नहीं करता. इट्स जस्ट दैट, एंड आई नेवर एक्चुअली केयर अबाउट कितने लाइक्स आ रहे हैं, क्या चीज़ें आ रही हैं, बट इट्स actually about the impact that's getting created. Yeah.
And in so many of these stories,
Yeah.
you have hundreds of them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Personal favorites, personal inspirations for you.
Very tough question. So I think a women-led founder startup, I think Nadia's story is definitely one of the most inspiring ones, I believe. So is, I think, so hard to choose, yeah. But I think second one is Kiran Mazumdar Shaw of Biocon. Very, very interesting story again, right? Although it, again as I said, it wasn't, वो इतनी ज़्यादा शेयर शायद नहीं हुई होगी, but it's, I think, my personal favorite. On the men's side, I think it first one has to be hands down Sridhar Vembu, the guy from Zoho, of course, who raised without capital. So very, if you read these stories on Google, you will get to know what actual businesses are about. Because most of these stories have actually been built from either the Y2K bug that happened in US. How many of you remember, I'm pretty sure in the room would remember the Y2K bug that happened, which crashed the market, .com crash हुआ उसके बाद, or either the 2008 global financial meltdown. Every of these stories has come through that aspect and phase. So हम लोग तो COVID बोलते हैं, उन लोगों ने तो मतलब तब देखा था जब इंडस्ट्री ही नहीं बची थी. Right, so Sridhar Vembu is one of my favorite ones, and the natural story, Naturals ice cream, आप लोगों ने सुना होगा. Amazing story of a founder. He started as a waiter at a restaurant. यहीं नवी बॉम्बे में पनवेल side he used to work as a waiter at a पाव भाजी restaurant. And then बहुत लोगों को नहीं पता होगा Naturals ice cream, but पहले वो पाव भाजी बेचते थे. Right. So this is, मतलब मेरी खुद को भी इतना learning होती है. This is so amazing, yeah. So.
आदित्य, आपने जब श्रीधर वेम्बू का नाम लिया तो मेरे मन में ये थॉट आया कि आपको लगता है एज ए इन्वेस्टर द होल गेम इज नाउ चेंजिंग टू ओनली वैल्यूएशन और हम क्या करें कि जल्दी से वैल्यूएशन बढ़ जाए रादर देन रियल वैल्यू एडिशन. क्या ये ऐसा हो रहा है या ये मेरे मन में ऐसा?
देखो, आपके मन में ऐसा लगा तो मतलब हो रहा है. अगर हो नहीं रहा होता तो आपके मन में नहीं लगा होता. तो हो तो रहा है डेफिनेटली. सी, एंड एट द एंड ऑफ द डे ना, लेट मी बी एक्सट्रीमली ऑनेस्ट, जो वैल्यूएशन वाला गेम है ना, इससे सिर्फ हम लोग को एक बुरा लगता है, बट एवरीबडी मेक्स मनी एट द प्रोसेस. फाउंडर मेक्स मनी, इन्वेस्टर्स मेक मनी. So this game is beneficial for everybody in that perspective. But is that good for entrepreneurship? Maybe not. But at the end of the day, I to just say one thing. What is happening around you, which is uncontrollable, right? Even Dhoni has this perfect, like MS Dhoni has this perfect philosophy. You control the controllables. You don't control the uncontrollables. When he goes to a match, he does not know whether he'll win or not. But he for sure knows one thing, कि फील्ड पोजीशन में कैसे लगाऊंगा, ओवर्स कितने टाइम में खत्म करूंगा, बॉलर रोटेशन कैसे धीरे धीरे होगी, राइट? ही नोज कि एक प्लान होगा. आई विल बी कूल एंड आई विल रिएक्ट टू द सिचुएशन. आई विल नॉट, ऐसे नहीं कि पहले एक बिजनेस प्लान बना के बैठ जाऊंगा कि मैच ऐसे खेलेंगे. आई विल रिएक्ट, बट आई विल नो व्हाट माय कंट्रोलेबल्स आर, राइट? कि अगर 11 बॉल पे 3 रन चाहिए, मैं अब उस नेक्स्ट बॉल पे 5 बॉल पे 2 रन नहीं सोचूंगा. मैं सोचूंगा कि 11 पे 3 पे क्या इस पे डबल लेके बनाना है या 4 लेके करना है, सामने बॉलर कौन है, ठीक है, पावर प्ले में कितने फील्डर्स खड़े होंगे, all of these things. So value creation is actually the thing of a startup. We say when you are focusing on value creation, valuation automatically happens. Valuation is never the objective of a startup. It's the end product. It's the end product. It's the byproduct which automatically happens. आप पेन किलर की दवाई लेते हो तो आप इसलिए लेते हो कि मेरा बीपी बढ़ जाए, राइट? बट इट जो आपको उसके बाद एक सुकून मिलता है, राइट? यू कंटिन्यू टू द नेक्स्ट ऑफ योर डे, योर प्रोडक्टिविटी इंक्रीजेस. दैट वाजंट द प्रोडक्ट ऑफ योर पेन किलर, but that was actually a byproduct that happened. So focus on value, the process. Byproducts are automatically happening. Investor value creation startup में पैसा क्यों नहीं लगाना चाहेगा? Zoho का हमने नाम लिया. Zoho ने इतने investors को reject करा throughout the thing. Look at Salesforce को reject करा. जब Y2K बैग में his value was 0, एक investor 150 crores की valuation पे उसको fund करने को ready था. He still denied because he was focusing on value creation. That's why it's one of my best stories. Don't be tempted by temptations. Temptations are never long lasting. So yeah, that's one.
Sorry, I'm just asking. जब इन्वेस्टर्स पैसा लगाते हैं प्रेशर तो होता है ना जो जो बिजनेस में है कि भाई हमें somehow we have to multiply our growth और वहां जाकर क्या मॉडल कुछ गड़बड़ हो रहा है.
That's the thing. That's the first classical mistake that every entrepreneur does. When they take money from an investor, they think they're building it for the investor. But I'm sure the other startup founders in the room would also agree. They're building it actually for the customers. Businesses are never built for investors. अगर आप क्योंकि इन्वेस्टर तो आज है, मैं 2-3 साल बाद पैसा लेके निकल जाऊंगा, तो आप बिल्ड किसके लिए कर रहे हो? मेरे 2-3 साल के लिए. आप एक्चुअल लॉन्ग टर्म में बिल्ड कर रहे हो फॉर अ कस्टमर हु विल ट्रांजैक्ट विद यू सो मेनी टाइम्स ओवर एंड ओवर एंड ओवर अगेन. So that's the thing. And don't take money from an investor who wants you to build it for him. Actual build it for your customers. If you are able to service your customers in the best manner possible, investor servicing is a byproduct. कोई भी investor जो ऐसा है वो नाराज नहीं होगा अगर आपने बोला कि मैंने आज customer के लिए इतनी चीजें करी है and I was able to service it. So yeah, focus on that.
स्ट्रेटेजिक प्लानिंग में बिजनेस में वैल्यूज का इम्पोर्टेंस उसकी ब्रांड बनाने के लिए कितना जरूरी है?
वेरी सर, आप मतलब इतने एक्सपीरियंस से ही ये क्वेश्चन आ सकता था. इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. एक्चुअली थिंग इज कि दिस इज, जब मैं भी एक इन्वेस्टर को फाड़ का आइडिया बता रहा था, दे आस्क्ड मी दिस फर्स्ट थिंग, तुम सब छोड़ यार, तुम पैसा कैसे कमाते हो मुझे नहीं जानना है, तुम्हारे कस्टमर्स कौन है मुझे नहीं जानना है. व्हाट्स योर मिशन? व्हाट इज दैट समथिंग दैट यू आर ट्राइंग टू अचीव विद दिस? इससे क्या ऐसा होगा दैट अगर ये नहीं हुआ तो कोई और तो दुनिया बदल जाएगी. बिकॉज वेंचर्स आज भी आएंगे कल भी आएंगे, इन्वेस्टमेंट फर्म्स आज भी हैं कल भी हैं. अगर मैं ना खोलूं तो कोई और कर ही देगा. But what is that one thing that you're chasing that defines everything? Like for example, when we talk about, like let's talk about from one Z to the another Z called Zerodha, right? Their mission, their value from very first day was clear कि customer is actually the king. And that reflected in pretty much everything. Be it their low broking fees, be it their 24/7 customer support, one of the first broking firms to have a dedicated team in that ways, like in the purest sense. Their tech first thing, product आप देखो. So, I'm not an advertiser of Zerodha, ना मैंने अभी तक story भी नहीं लिखी है, but actually the mission, when you said strategic planning में that mission होना, that values होना, that values of love towards customer obsession जो हम बोलते हैं, not investor obsession but customer obsession, translates in everything. So if you have a mission right from start, your business is just backtracking of that mission. But if you don't have a mission when you start, you are just multiply things without knowing what is there on the right hand side of equal to. So yeah, that is that one.
मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था, वाइल इन्वेस्टिंग इन अ स्टार्टअप, आप जैसे आपने बोला कि आइडिया तो कॉमन ही है, मतलब बहुत लोगों के दिमाग में आती है, तो एक इन्वेस्टमेंट करते टाइम बीइंग अ एंजल इन्वेस्टर और अ वीसी फर्म, क्या प्रायोरिटाइज चीज़ें होती है जो आप लोग देखते हो कि ये तो होना चाहिए, मैंडेटरी है, ये तो होना ही चाहिए?
मैं क्विकली आंसर कर दूंगा इससे क्योंकि आई थिंक टाइम भी काफ़ी ले लिया मैंने. सो द foremost and the most important thing for us is the founder. बाकी चीज़ें क्या है does matters to us. They all again become a part of our evaluation. But if the founder is not strong, and when I say strong, I'll help you explain. Then the business is never made. There is always a common thing when you are betting on a race, on a horse race, Who do you bet on? The jockey or the horse? What's your answer? Jockey, right? Because a jockey can turn like a old horse also into the winning mare, right? So the hand is the hand is always in the jockey, right? So essentially for us, we are backing founders. We are looking at best of things, clarity, as sir said. What clarity do they have? Do they have bigger goals? Like, are they thinking big? Second is, how much do they know and how much do they don't know? For us, how much do they don't know is very important. Because जो उसको नहीं आता है, अगर वो एडमिट करता है कि मुझे वो नहीं आता है, तो कल को खुद से करने की कोशिश नहीं करेगा. एंड स्टार्टअप्स की फर्स्ट मिस्टेक ही क्लासिकल मिस्टेक होती है कि फाउंडर को लगता है मैं ही कोडिंग भी करूंगा, मैं ही मार्केटिंग भी करूंगा, मैं ही ये करूंगा. मैं स्टार्टअप्स आर नॉट जस्ट अबाउट द फाउंडर, इट्स ऑलवेज अबाउट द टीम, राइट? सो दैट्स द इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. एंड थर्ड एंड द लास्ट मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज, ये सब भी आता है तो भी मेरे साथ काम कैसे करेगा? इफ यू आर नॉट एबल टू वर्क विद मी एज एन इन्वेस्टर, आप मतलब आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि आप मेरी हर बात मानो, बट अगर एक कॉर्डियल रिलेशनशिप ही नहीं है हमारे बीच में, ours is not like कि मतलब ours is a long term relationship, right? It's a marriage. We both are getting married, right? So we have to be on common terms. आपकी कुछ terms हैं, मेरी भी कुछ terms होंगी. आप valuation लेके आते हो, वो आपकी term हुई. मैं क्या ऐड करूंगा और कैसे काम करेंगे वो मेरी term हुई. So we have to match both of it. It's a marriage. अगर business बड़ा बनेगा तो मैं आपके साथ 5 साल, 7 साल, 10 साल रहूंगा, right? खैर marriages तो आजकल इससे भी कम में जल्दी हो जाती हैं, राइट? सो हमारी तो और लॉन्ग टर्म है एनिवर्सरी के साथ 25th.